would you do if you walked into a room and you found your 5-year-old watching a porn movie? You'd probably wonder, well, why she was doing it, how she got there, how much it's going to affect her. That's probably your first thoughts. And your automatic reaction is probably to click out of it and just get rid of it. And what would you do then? So this is the crossroads. How would you deal with it? Would you talk to her afterwards? You might talk to her, but decide against it because, it's pretty embarrassing. What are you going to say about porn to a 5-year-old? And also, you probably don't want her to know about sex because she's 5. Okay, strange situation. Or you might decide to have the talk with her, but not really sure what to say. You don't want to make the wrong move. You don't want to damage her. It's an important conversation, so you don't want to say the wrong thing. So did this really happen? Yeah, it did. Not to me, but to a client. So did she talk to her daughter? Well, the daughter was in the lounge room and she was with her 2 cousins who were around the same age and they were watching this video. And the parent did talk to her child. But the main message, she told me, that she gave to her child was don't go searching around on the internet and don't watch that kind of thing again. And a little while ago, she was telling me she felt really uneasy about the conversation that she'd had with her daughter after that event because she didn't actually talk about the content. She just felt embarrassed and she didn't know what to do. And she told me, because I'm in this kind of field and I help families around this, but she said she didn't tell anyone else. She didn't want to be judged about being a bad parent. And she just felt ashamed. And there's a lot of shame around parenting when it comes to children's uses of technology. So like many of you, I'm a parent as well. So I've got 3. I've got a teenager and 2 young adults now. And I haven't walked in on any of them watching this kind of video. But they're online every day, and they have been for a long time. And we know there's a huge amount of pornography and sexually explicit content online. So the likelihood of my kids or your children seeing this kind of content online is very high. So as parents, we can actually never be sure what our kids have seen, how much they've seen, or the effect it's had on them. We can never be 100% certain. Now, the online world is becoming our kids' classroom in lots of ways, whether we like it or not, particularly around their understanding of sex, relationships, gender roles, and everything else, every other interpretation that comes from watching this kind of content. So in terms of watching porn online, we often think of teenage boys, they're on there, they're searching and, they're curious, all that kind of thing. And that's true. That's definitely happening. It's not just teenage boys either. It's happening more broadly than that. But most children see this kind of content accidentally. Okay, they just come across it in some way. So the research shows that about 2/3 of kids who are between the ages of 10 and 17 have got this sort of unwanted exposure to porn and other sexually explicit material. So how does it happen? Well, I'll tell you some stories from my research. So I spent a lot of time in my research talking with children about their technology uses. And this is just one thing they talk to me about. So one way that they come across this sort of content is by ads that pop up or clickbait ads. So you might see them, if you're searching online, if you don't have an ad block on your device, these ads will just pop up everywhere. Well, these ads can be quite sexual in nature. So, for example, an 8-year-old boy was telling me he was searching for the movie Finding Dory, that sequel to Finding Nemo. So a kids movie, a G-rated kids movie. And it brought up a streaming website. And he said, and on this website that I was on, there were these kinds of ads all over. So the way he was describing it was sort of quite, sexy ads, girls wearing bikinis, that kind of thing, and quite sexually, provocative poses. And he said, I clicked on some of them. And why'd you click on it? He said, I just want to see what it was, I just was curious. And you can't say anything about that because, of course, he's curious. These ads are designed to evoke your curiosity and to make you want to click on them. And he told me that he didn't tell his mum, he just did it. He didn't tell anyone about it But he told me because I was in that sort of researcher child situation. So I'm in this unusual position where kids sort of tell me these things that they're doing online, but their parents often don't know. There's also a lot of nudity and simulated sex in things that aren't designed for kids, but that kids are watching. Things like shows that have that kind of thing, like Game of Thrones. If anyone's watched that, you know it's happening there. And one of the most popular video games in the world is Grand Theft Auto. Now, it's R-rated, but, you know, ratings in video games, well, no one really seems to care about the ratings. So while you might decide not to buy your child that game, they can stream it, they can see it on a friend's device, or they can just go onto YouTube and see a number of clips where we see the sort of sexual action that happens in Game of Thrones. And Game of Thrones, in Grand Theft Auto. And I was so surprised that snippets of oral sex or prostitution, that kind of thing, they're all up on YouTube, very easy to access. And most recently I was watching a 6-year-old boy, and he was on a website, a kids' game website that he loves. He loved the game, this particular game. So he was showing me the website. And so he's on this website. It was crazy. So there's the game, and the game was about that big. So the screen was about that big. Surrounding the game were lots of different kinds of ads, and quite a number of them were clickbait. So when you clicked on them, they took you to a more explicit site. You know, that's how it works. So he's really in the game. So he's actually having to lean forward so he can concentrate on the little game. And he's told me he just tries to ignore the ads around. He doesn't really like it, but he just tries to ignore it because he likes the game, and he keeps going back to that website because he really likes the game. And of course, you know, there's also the sharing of this material. So it's not just kids coming on, seeing it by themselves or with their brother or their playmate, but then they do share it with each other as well. And on top of all this, because there's so much competition online for this kind of material, the shocking nature of it just gets upped and upped and upped. So the kind of material that's inviting them to click on, or the kind of material that they are led to once they click on their sites, or if they're searching for this kind of videos, it can be quite extreme and quite shocking. And because of its proliferation, without realising, many of the children in this generation are actually regular viewers and interactors with sexually explicit material, mostly just because it's an accident. And this is a massive change to childhood, so we need to really think about the implications of it. And it's quite an uncomfortable feeling as parents and as educators. So a report published by the Australian Human Rights Commission said that there's evidence that viewing pornography as a child, impacted on the attitudes of children about gender roles, about the belief that women are sex objects. Now, it can be reversed in this kind of imagery, but often it's still dominated by the idea that women are sex objects, that men should be dominant, women should be submissive, and regular viewing of pornography can affect the way that kids understand sex, their body, the role of each gender, and the ability of all children to form healthy sexual relationships. And viewing pornography, this report also says, can work towards normalising coercive, aggressive or violent sexual behaviour that we know is in this kind of, particularly the videos. So at this point, around 85% of 2-year-olds go online every day. So how much sexually explicit material do you think they've seen by the time they're 5 or 8 or 12 or 18? And how might this affect their chances for healthy sexual relationships when they grow up? Or the opportunity for them to feel comfortable about their non-fake body, their real body? So banning young kids from using the internet isn't the answer. So children are growing up in a technological world, and there are lots of great things about that. But there's also this murky side that's manifesting for them. So we need to deal with both sides. And that's about education, life skills, and that's the best way to protect them from the influence of pornography that they're highly likely to be engaging with on a regular basis. One thing people often say is, but it's going to rob. If I talk to my young child about, sex, it's going to rob them of their innocence. Okay, it's a very viable argument. I feel the same. I'm a parent. I don't want my kids to get into that kind of thing before they need to. But leaving kids to understand these images on their own, without anyone helping them to understand it, could potentially have much more disastrous implications for their view of themselves and their role of others in life. So it's about age-appropriate talks. How you would talk to a 5-year-old about this, it's quite different to how you would talk to an 18-year-old. So information, communication and respect are key ingredients for our sexual well-being that our children need to understand. So as a society, we have a responsibility to teach our children about sexual literacy. If we don't, then who or what will? Next.